Join the light social media.
This is an awakening.
Snap out of it!
The light dome.
So, what better time to have some network issues but now, right? Let me begin by saying Salam alaikum, Shalom, peace and blessings, Hotep. This is your brother Abdul Adud, aka Questman, coming at you live, Soul Journey of Life, conscious social media. Today, I'd like us to be able to delve into a profound comparison of some of the most courageous and inspirational figures in global Africa and the diaspora of today, of the black community, from Malcolm X, Khalid Muhammad, Thomas Sankara, Grandmaster Jay, and even Ibrahim Traore is included now when we mention the likes of Marcus Garvey and others. Hopefully you can hear my words. When I do a sound check, looks like I'm able to come through there on that end. So these individuals, which we might call them heroes of our day and age from amongst our own people, have left a lasting impact on attracting unity and instilling the will to stand up for the cause of revolution against oppressive forces such as systemic racism, colonialism, police brutality, and neo-colonialism. Pardon me because I'm doing two things at one time. I'm also making sure that my network is strong enough to bring in my camera so you can see your brother. Be sure that as you come in to like, share, and subscribe. Okay, let's try to do this again. There we go. Okay, so it's coming in over there. But this side is still not coming in. Okay, it's coming in slowly. Not as strong of a connection as I would like, but let's see if we can make it work. All right, so it looks like we have a camera up now. So, what I would like to try or attempt to do today is establish a bit of a comparison or a basis, you understand, for defining the Black Revolutionary. What does this mean? What does this equate to? And so on. So I want to be able to try to do that, at least with a few uh, known names, and some of the names you may not know, you may not be familiar with, um, depending on where you're coming from. But I think for the most part, those who have grown up in the United States and those who have been observing, uh, history and the struggle for self-determination and whatnot, I think some of these names, some of these personalities you're going to be aware of in some form or fashion. So, for example, if I were to bring up a name like Malcolm X or Khalid Muhammad and even Marcus Garvey, that probably will trigger your memory a little bit. Some of these names are individuals that appeared before some of our lifetimes, but we know about them whether it be through school or just in the community. Some of us know just a small uh, deal about them, right? But what do they have in common? You understand, with each other? What was it or is it about them that makes them stand out so much so that to this day, especially those who have come and passed away, what makes them stand out? You understand? Um, in our hearts, in our memories, to this day. We can say that they share a common thread in their unapologetic approach towards challenging oppressive systems. They, they posed a fierce determination to uplift their people and dismantle the chains of oppression through um, intellectual discourse and a fearless activism. Malcolm X. Malcolm X's intellectual prowess, coupled with his unwavering commitment to Black liberation, earned him a place in history as a revolutionary icon. Khalid Muhammad's boldness in speaking the truth to power resonated deeply within the community, inspiring many to rise against injustice. Marcus Garvey's Pan African vision and call for self reliance ignited a sense of pride and unity among Black individuals globally. So, using these as an example, what can we say are key features that make up what you might call a Black revolutionary? What can we say is or standards that we can go by that we find as common traits amongst all these uh, personalities, that we identify with as being um, Black revolutionary people. You understand? I'm going to say, I'm going to mention at least 10 guiding uh, principles or characteristics, you understand, of a Black revolutionary. Let's start off with that. So, I would say the top 10 characteristics of a Black revolutionary. Number one is unyielding courage. And the reason why it's important, just so I can say this for me to kind of establish this as a basis, is I want to see or identify that we can recognize these characteristics in the personalities that we'll talk about uh, tonight, right? So let's see if we can find these characteristics, at least these 10, in each of the individuals that we'll go over. Number one, unyielding courage. At the core of a Black revolutionary is the unshakable courage to stand against overwhelming odds. This involves confronting oppressive systems, challenging injustices, and often risking personal safety to advocate for fundamental rights and systemic change. That means they have a sense of selflessness. While many people that you see in the day and age, simply want either camera time or it's a popularity contest, or there's something in it, like fame or fortune. The thing about a black revolutionary is they're not really concerned about that. They're actually for the cause. That means every move they make, every word they speak is passionate, is from their heart. You understand? Sometimes more energized than others, willing to give everything they've got to see their message, their cause, to see it through. So unyielding courage, and they're not afraid. They're not afraid to tell the tyrants, to tell the any corruption among the powers that be, the crime that they are manifesting against humanity. They're not afraid to tell them their evils. You understand? They will tell it how it is. They will not bite their tongue. Excuse me. So unwavering courage. That's number one. Number two, deep commitment to justice. A black revolutionary is driven by a profound commitment to justice. They strive to rectify historical wrongs and eliminate systemic inequalities that disproportionately affect black communities. This commitment extends beyond local issues, resonating with global struggles against racism and colonial legacies. In other words, all things being as it is, they are law abiding. You understand? They move through a lawfulness. Um, Sometimes, as they move through this lawfulness, it may seem otherwise. Some people may say, oh, they're being extreme, but that's in the face of a corrupt system. When a corrupt system that's supposed to be lawful is blatantly corrupt, blatantly racist, then someone that's actually about the right thing, that's actually standing for justice, may seem extreme. Through all that, and um, sometimes people become passive in a community to where they start accepting the wickedness of the corrupt regime. They start accepting it. They start justifying it. They start, adapting to it and just getting along. You understand? But the thing about a true black revolutionary personality is that they're actually going by a lawful um, sense of responsibility. For example, liberation is something that anyone uh, should have as a human right to be the right simply to exist, to be a human, to be treated right, to be treated equally. You understand? That should be you know uh, basically applicable for all involved. You understand? Yeah, my network is going doing what it does today. So deep commitment to justice. So even as they they stand up for the cause of justice, they're standing up in the face of injustice. That means the powers that be are not actually demonstrating lawfulness. You understand? To mistreat someone on the basis of their skin color, you understand, or their religion. These are actually injustices. So it would be the opposite for someone to stand up against that. What they would be doing would be actually implementing justice. Okay. Let me get back in here. All right. So in a day and age, where we are well familiar with, uh, you know, the horrendous characteristics of colonialism, and racism, and what have you, where people can simply treat you a certain way because of how you look, the way you were born, not something, that some kind of misbehavior, but you're just your natural, God-given traits. Number three, intellectual rigor. Knowledge is a powerful tool in the arsenal of a revolutionary. A deep understanding of history, politics, economics, and social theories informs their strategies and actions. This intellectual rigor helps articulate the vision and rationale of the movement to diverse audiences, garnering broader support. So, one of the things that often stands out to me and that I admire most is when the Black revolutionary is actually very intelligent. A lot of times, some people, they are passionate with what they feel in their heart, but they may not be equipped with the knowledge of how to deal with it. But a true Black revolutionary, they are learned in why they are uh, rising for the cause. You understand? In fact, you might even say that that is the fuel for why they are, uh, standing up in the first place, because of what they know, because of the intelligence that they have about the problem that be. So, intellectual writer, they come with a message. They come with, often with clear bullet points or clear concepts that they stand for. You understand? Clear concepts that they stand for, clear values. Number four, strong leadership and charisma. Effective revolutionaries are not only thinkers, but also leaders who can inspire and mobilize people. Charisma helps them connect emotionally with others, turning personal convictions into a collective action. Their leadership is crucial in guiding the movement and maintaining the moment. I will say, for example, if you heard of the person by the name of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he didn't see himself as charismatic. Some of there are those amongst his followers who would not agree with that, but he didn't see himself as charismatic as he would like to have been. And so when he encountered the likes of Malcolm X and the forcefulness and charisma that Malcolm X has, he definitely realized that Malcolm X would be an asset to the overall movement that Elijah Muhammad had been teaching in the first place. So, in the matter of that, he knew that Muhammad needed, or that Malcolm X needed knowledge. So, that was the job that uh, Elijah Muhammad took upon himself, was instilling in Malcolm X in his younger time of his activism, instilling in Malcolm X the knowledge to inspire his words. So when Malcolm X was empowered with those words, you understand, you can basically say that his mouth was on fire. You understand? He was unstoppable at that point. Number five, and understand that I want to get these bullets, I want to get these 10 principles out first before talking about some of the exemplar Black revolutionaries that we have to talk about today, that you see even on the picture that we have for this presentation. Number five is empathy and community orientation. At their heart, revolutionaries work towards the betterment of their communities. Empathy drives them to understand and address the pain and needs of others. They prioritize community welfare over personal gain, often working to empower others to lead and advocate for their own rights. Many times you'll get some of these worldly leaders, these bogus leaders, who behave or act as if they cared about the plight of uh, black people, African people across the world. And in reality, they're simply there for a cash grab or a popularity contest, as I mentioned. But a black revolutionary, they truly sympathize with the cause. And oftentimes you'll see them going to meet some of the people who are suffering the most, to go to the areas where, perhaps, there's a mother who's become a widow and a child who's now an orphan or now without a father. And, they will go to communicate with them and find out and get an understanding from them directly what their concerns are, what their needs are, and what their pain is. So that's the nature of a black revolution. They're not bigger than the people they're fighting for. That's not how they position themselves, but they position themselves more like a janitor who's cleaning a building. He's concerned about the cleaning up that which is more important than his own person. You understand? So that way, when those people who need to utilize the facilities of the building he's cleaning up return, they return to safety. You understand? And comfort. That's the nature of a black revolutionary. So that was number 5: empathy and community orientation. So number 6: strategic thinking. Strategic thinking. Revolutionaries are visionaries who can foresee potential outcomes and plan several moves ahead. They are tactical in picking their battles, knowing when to push forward and when to regroup, always keeping the larger goal in sight. That's one of the things that I really say I can admire when I see true black revolutionaries in action, because they've taken the time out to watch the problem, to watch how the oppressor moves, and especially if the oppressor is better equipped and better informed with intelligence and whatnot. They know that their work is cut out for them. They know they have to. The black revolutionary knows he has to move a certain way. He has to communicate a certain way. Otherwise, his mission will be defeated. You understand? So the revolutionary knows that he has to handle this with care. At his heart is the concerns for his people and getting them out of the conditions they find themselves in, right? Let's do this. So he's aware that he has to understand his enemy well. Sometimes he has to be diplomatic more than aggressive. You understand? Sometimes he has to be more aggressive than diplomatic. Sometimes he has to be more fiery in his words, and then do more of his action behind the scene where the camera is not on. And I think that's a thing that some of us in our day and age of social media tend to forget. We want to see everything on camera. We want to see every action. What are you doing for us? How are you going to help us? We want to see everything on the camera. And so when we don't see something on the camera, we think that the revolutionary is not doing something. And we will discredit them or belittle them in some way, or think in some kind of way negative about them, not realizing that some of the biggest work that the revolutionaries have to do, there's no camera around. And oftentimes the enemy likes it that way. So, yeah, strategic thinking. Number 7: adaptability and resilience. The path of revolution is fraught with obstacles and opposition. Successful revolutionaries are adaptable, capable of navigating changing political climates and overcoming setbacks. Resilience keeps them focused on their goals, even under the most challenging circumstances. And that makes me think about one of the things that I admire out of some of the great revolutionaries. is they aren't simple-minded. You understand? In other words, for example, mostly all the ones that I can think of have a religious foundation, but they don't allow their religious foundation to become like a hindrance to those who are attracted to their cause. You understand? They themselves stand on their principles, the religious principles, so that when you see them, you see what it is that they believe more than what they might say they believe. You can see it through their character, through their behavior. So they don't have to go around saying, well, I'm this, I'm that, I believe this, I believe that when it comes to matters of religion. Their objective is unification and the protection of that unification by any means necessary. So they know how to adapt in given circumstances. They know how to, carry themselves and present themselves properly given the particular audience that's before them. And that's not easy, by the way. That's not easy. In a day and age, I'm just going to say, where people oftentimes, are religious. For example, I'm going to use our religion for this point. It tends to be so, we're so, I'm going to say nicely, orthodox that if things don't go in a certain method that we think we read about or that we think we understand, then sometimes we don't recognize the revolutionary black man or woman being for our cause, or we will have some kind of problem with them. Where if they don't carry our banner, then we don't we put ourselves where we're not as supportive as we should be if they don't carry our banner or whatnot. And I could think of people old, in the past who, if they didn't carry the banner of the house of Israel, okay, they didn't get the support of a certain group of people, or if they didn't carry the banner of Christianity, you understand, then somehow they didn't get the right recognition or support. Or if they didn't carry the banner, if they didn't, say Allah instead of saying God, or if they didn't say God and if they said God instead of Allah, somebody would have a problem with that, and as a result, they would feel some kind of way about the person. So a true revolutionary understands these hangups, and if you will, he or she, they navigate through all of this strategically. Um, so yeah, that was adaptability and resilience. Number 8, moral integrity. Integrity is essential for maintaining the trust and respect of followers and allies. A black revolutionary lives by the ethics they preach, demonstrating honestly accountability and consistency in both public and private life. So, for example, let's say you are boasting about black unity, boasting about black pride and things of this nature, but here on the side you've got a Caucasian wife. That's going to be that's going to discredit you. You understand? Because people are going to be like, "How are you talking this talk?" But here, you don't even marry a woman from your own people. You understand? How is it that you are talking this bold, flavorful talk, but you don't even have a wife from amongst us? That's going to discredit a person like that. You know, if a person doesn't practice what they themselves preach, you understand? Whether it's clear, it's transparent, it's going to discredit them. Now, you need to also understand that sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, a black revolutionary has to move strategically. So, for example, it makes me think of Elijah Muhammad, using Elijah Muhammad again, who you'll find him sitting in conversation with members of the Ku Klux Klan. What was he doing? Marcus Garvey did the same, a similar thing. He was sitting trying to uh, reason or negotiate. But this is a war tactic. In war, you will have to be diplomatic sometimes. You will have to send out your diplomats to the other side to try to find out some terms. What does the enemy want? Here's what you want. Where can we, establish something so that both sides have peace and at least respects the other and doesn't violate the other side. To do that, you have to be able to come to the other side and talk to their representation, and then come to your side and talk to your representation or whatnot, and have that kind of discussion. You have to have moral integrity to do that. You have to have an understanding about the climate of things to be able to do that. This is a characteristic of a black revolutionary. When you would see Malcolm X talking with some of the police, the law enforcement, you understand, respecting their authority, not respecting their brutality. You understand, respecting their authority, meaning that he has to communicate in a way that doesn't bring damage to the cause he's standing up for. You understand, but allows him a platform to where the opponent will at least he listen to what he has to say, even if he doesn't respond favorably. At least he got his message out to that enemy, and the enemy knows why he's being confronted by this revolutionary cause. So, number 9, inclusivity. Understanding the collective struggles require collective responses. A true revolutionary embraces inclusivity. They work to bridge divides within oppressed communities. They base it, be it based upon like gender or class or sexual orientation, recognizing the unity strengthens the movements. In other words, oftentimes you'll find that revolutionaries will look above the differences that divide us and look for things that are common amongst us that unify us. Now, don't get me wrong, if there's something that they are passionate about in their most fundamental principles, they won't budge. So, for example, if you can recall, some of us that have been paying attention to like the stories of Malcolm X, some of the Caucasians were wanting to, some of the whites were wanting to help him. And he was basically turning them down, like, look, this isn't something, that he's willing to accept, basically. You understand? They asked him if there's something they could do to help him. He says, no, there's nothing you can do. And he was being straight to the point on his principles. You understand? And that might seem harsh or rigid to some, but when you understand the position or the perspective that Malcolm X was observing from, it makes perfect sense. Even to this day, it still makes sense. If you see that, imagine you've experienced throughout your life where every turn and corner you meet this adversary, and he looks like, this certain personality who's always the same person, causing your oppression. You understand? You're not going to be too receptive when someone of the same likeness approaches you with an olive branch, or in a sense of being a friend. And I'm not saying that a white person per se could not be a friend, but when you have experienced the negative too often, more so than the positive, you're going to be kind of leery towards embracing any kind of friendship from, you would rather play it safe than sorry, in other words. And that's kind of, how I see that Malcolm X positioned himself. He was rather wanting to play it safe than sorry. Why try to figure out which of you, as Muhammad Ali would say, which of you is the poisonous snake from the snakes that are not poisonous? I'd rather just leave all the snakes alone altogether, he would position himself. So for him, inclusivity, for the Black revolutionary, inclusivity primarily is dealing with the people who the cause is for altogether. It's nothing against any other race. The people that are the focal matter is family. It's your own people who are being oppressed in the first place, who are the victims of systemic racism in the first place, who lack jobs, who lack uh, proper health care and things of this nature, simply because the deck, so to speak, being stacked against them. And so a black revolutionary's primary concern, more than anything else, is going to be his own people. That's why he rose up in the first place. If if the problems didn't exist in the way that they exist, attacking, offending, oppressing, uh, oppressing own, then he wouldn't have a reason to. I'm hearing an echo here. He wouldn't have a reason to for the cause to begin with. You understand? Let me see here. I'm looking. I hear an echo. Okay, I fixed it. So the Black Revolutionary is about his cause. He's about what inspired him to rise up in the first place. And I can say it like this, as one person might put it: um, when, so long as there remains systemic racism, so long as this kind of oppression exists, then his focus is on that cause. Everything else is not saying that, oh, could we be friends later? Maybe, maybe not. It still might not be possible. Because then, even in that case, we'd have to understand, how did we get into this problem in the first place? How did we find ourselves in this circumstance in the first place? And until we find that out, everything outside of that has to be on pause, if it ever gets to be able to restore. Could there be diplomacy? Could there be exchanges at a later time? That's something that, we would say, if God so wills. And then number 10, visionary communication. The ability to articulate a clear and compelling vision is paramount. Revolutionaries must communicate complex ideas in relatable terms, rallying support and sparking action. They use speeches, writings, and modern media effectively, making the case for change both logically and emotionally. So, emotionally, so they have to be able to um, present or package, if you would, both their recognition of the problem and why it's important to deal with the problem and how they intend to do it. They have to be able to do it in a strategic way because, you know, um, you got to remember there's an enemy, and the enemy's job is to hinder your effort towards your goal. You understand? So the more the enemy knows about your agenda or how you plan to approach it, the better able the enemy is able to plan and develop obstacles to your intention. So the Black Revolutionary has to be able to communicate to you and I in a way that reaches us, that connects to us, and at the same time, um, you know, uh, is quick enough, swift enough to reach our hearts before the enemy can have any say so. Oftentimes, we have to refer to like events that have happened to those who came before, right? Um, Muammar Gaddafi is possibly such an example because uh, Muammar Gaddafi he was a very strong personality in the African continent, um, and a leader at that. The leader, or I'm getting a picture here because I want to show this picture while I'm talking about things. There we go. Let's just put that there. So not seen in this picture, but Muammar Gaddafi, as I was talking about, um, he was not able to gather um, the proper support from the community at large that would rise up, in a way that would be protective to him. He was not able to beat the enemy's slander. You understand? Um, his message was being pushed, but the enemy also had a message meant to belittle him, meant to degrade him, meant to hinder his cause. And because the enemy, um, you could say, acted more craftily, um, they were able to unalive Muammar Gaddafi. Now, another element of this is that there there was, um, a point where Muammar Gaddafi knew not to trust his enemies. But then it appeared that a point came where perhaps he started to trust the enemy, or at least trust them enough to, uh, you know, maybe in his perspective, this was necessary for negotiation purposes. But the enemy, um, trying to be one step ahead, used that against him. They convinced him that they could be trusted. They could be considered allies, even. You understand? They could be considered someone that you could reason with. And as a result of that misleading position against Muammar, they were able to undermine him, undermine his regime, and come in and unalive the leader of Libya. So, what you see here are some notable personalities that most of us, many of us, we may know uh, these icons that you see here. One you may not know, one you may not know about, and I am going to talk about him first. Give me a second here. While I'm talking about all these, I want us to be mindful of the 10 bullet points that I mentioned regarding the characteristics of a black revolutionary. One of the things that should be noted is that sometimes the revolutionaries may not be all that popular. They may not be known by, globally. Sometimes they may be known just very locally in the neighborhood. You understand? And that be the extent of it. But all the same, they still have they still bear the title or the weight of being a black revolutionary. And I'm going to talk first about the man that you see on the bottom right. That's the first one I want to talk about. The men that you see on the bottom right. But I'm going to name them all just so I can identify each picture that I have here. So on the bottom right, we'll start there on the bottom right. You have the most important black revolutionary that I've ever known or have ever met in my entire life. The most important black revolutionary, the most important hero. So not only is this a black revolutionary, but a hero as another that might be, you might even consider being a hero to the community as number 11 on that list of characteristics. They are a hero. They are seen as a hero. You understand? Savior in a way. A savior, a hero. Well, the man on the bottom right is the first hero I ever knew. the first hero, the first black revolutionary, the first person that I ever seen handle courageously his enemy. And I'm talking about his enemy of race, of systemic racism. The man that you see there is none other than my father, the image of my father. So you can call him the father of Abdul Wadud, right? I'm named after him. I bear his name. So I'm always able to remember my father's name easily and, without any difficulty. And also have a son who's named after him, named after me, and thus named after him. In any given case, this man, as a small child, I can remember just to bear witness to his venture as a revolutionary. In those days, sometimes the police officers, when they didn't have social media in those days, so you couldn't whip out a camera and post it on YouTube. So even though the brutality still existed, it wasn't popularized on camera, on social media. In his day and age, sometimes the police officers would be very arrogant, so arrogant that they would stir things up to where both sides would be talking smack to each other, making threats, of fighting and conflict, right? So one time, one officer decided to say, "Hey, okay, if you're all this and that, let's go at it right now." Basically, I'll take my badge off and put my weapon to the side, right? And so he did just that, and then squared up with my father. Now, my father wasn't a chump. He wasn't a coward. He wasn't someone to back down easily from a fight. And seeing this and seeing that the officer was legitimately at this particular time, and fortunately for my father, legitimately going to square up with him and not bring into the equation his badge, his authority. So they fought, and my father beat the guy up. To make a long story short, he beat up the police officer. And before this happened, this encounter even happened, he would tell me and my brother, I believe our mother was with us at the time. He told us to go across the street, go on the other side of the street, because he didn't want us to get caught up in the mix. You understand? So of course we went across the street, but I'm still looking to see what's up with my father. One, why are we going across the street? Why is he telling us this with a sense of urgency? And what's my father up to? So when I'm seeing my father, throw hands at this police officer who's always calling my father names, always disrespecting him, always, always these racist, terms and words that he's throwing at my father every time he meets him and crosses his path. And finally, to see this man go down hard, not softly, but hard to the ground from the hands that my father laid on this officer. That, to say the least, was very motivating to me, very inspiring. Now, of course, at my age at that time, I didn't understand the weight of racism and the weight of, the oppression that, our people had been going through. But I did understand, how frustrating this man had been towards my father. You understand? I'd hear and watch him and things like that. I even think at one time he called me a name, and I didn't even understand what was about. I didn't even understand it really, but I think I could remember him saying something to my father about me as we walked along. So seeing this guy drop hard at the hands of my father was definitely satisfying. You understand? And that might be what paved the way for the revolutionary spirit that I have as an adult. Because my father was inspirational on multiple levels. Many of the things that I do today, even my technician trade, you understand, was due to the inspiration of watching my father fix things and repair things, and always find a solution for problems that we might encounter. I always would see him thinking, and sometimes he would be uh, lying prostrate on the couch, relaxing, thinking about what to do next. So salute to my father, rest in peace. So that's the first revolutionary, the first hero I ever knew in my whole life, my own father. So that's why you see his picture there amongst the other revolutionaries, because for me, he has a place. Of course, he may not be relevant to you because you don't know him, and that's fine. But for me, I'm going with what I know and what matters to me because I'm the one talking about it here. And so my father has a seat amongst the revolutionaries of history in my heart, as far as my heart is concerned. Um, so I want to talk about this in a comparative way, right? In a comparative way, common ground, courageous influence, and unity for revolutionary change. Malcolm X, Khalid Muhammad, Thomas Sankara, Grandmaster Jay, Ibrahim Traore, Marcus Garvey stands as towering figures in the history of an ongoing struggle for Black liberation. Each of these men brought a unique blend of intellectual rigor and brave activism that resonates deeply within the global African and diaspora communities. Their courage in standing up against systemic racism, colonial tyrants, police brutality, and neo-colonialism serves as a beacon of inspiration, urging unity and collective action among oppressed communities worldwide. Let's go on with the intellectual approach and activism, right? And I'm going to start off with none other than one of my favorite, after my father, one of my favorite, Malcolm X, or also known as Malik El Shabazz. Malcolm X, known for his fiery rhetoric and profound eloquence, Malcolm championed racial pride and self sufficiency. His shift towards a more inclusive approach to human rights later in life highlighted a sophisticated understanding of global power, dynamics, and oppression. Let me see if I can get this up here for you. I'm going to go to the website, Soul Journey of Life. Got some stuff to share with you. So, Soul Journey of Life. Let's go to this tab right here. I don't think. Oh, no wonder I don't have the sound on, do I? Okay, so that was a clip of Malcolm X holding his own, holding his position. And I would like you, as you were listening to that, to think about the 10 points that we mentioned. You understand? One of the things that I readily noticed was him coming equipped with the the principles. He came equipped with the cause that he's standing for, and was even well prepared to respond to false accusations that were designed to basically try to belittle or shame or frame uh, his uh, religious kindred, his brothers and sisters, you understand, in a negative light, to try to pin them as being the same as the oppressor is being. You understand? That was the objective of, you know, the nature of those kind of questions, because those questions are, understand that when a reporter asks certain questions, sometimes they're asking them because this is what uh, the populace is perceiving. The white populace are perceiving it this way, and or that populace, uh, uh, the powers that be want that populace to perceive it that way. And I say that way because you'll be surprised at how many um, areas where there are whites who don't have any, concern, right or left, for the matter at all, unless you put it into their heads. What I'm saying is that there are, in fact, a significant number of whites who don't care anything about racism in any kind of manner of the term. Um, that doesn't mean that they want something to do with you or me, but it's saying that they're too busy, too occupied with the life that they're living, to be bothered with or to be concerned with racism. There are all those who are like that. I've met some, and in fact, some of them are more concerned about patriotism than racism. And if, for example, an enemy were to come, an enemy of the state I'm talking about were to come, you would find these people on the same side of the battlefield that you are standing, because for them, it's not about what race you are, it's about the fact that, hey, these people are invading the state that they are in, or the country that they're in. So, patriotism. Um, now, so Malcolm X was fully equipped to handle these formal questions. You understand? Knowing what kind of questions, needed what kind of answer. You understand? Not allowing himself to be tied up in something that could be argumentative and twisted. Where they can take and twist his words to make it mean something else. He made everything very precise and denounced things that were not true. But another thing that I admired was him standing on his religious principles. I say that because sometimes some of us think that in order to do something, we have to abandon our values, and that cannot be true. If, for example, if religion is true to you, if this is truth for you, how do you put that aside and stand on something else if this is actually true when it comes to you utilizing what tools you have at your arsenal for the benefit of your cause? So Malcolm X was an exemplary Muslim of his day, you could say. And he really truly believed in the tools provided for him by the principles, the practical application of his religion. He wasn't about to shy away from his religiousness simply because maybe some other sectors or other groups of people may not be religious. As far as Malcolm X was concerned, Islam was the solution, is the solution. You understand? That's as far as he's concerned. So for him, the greatest weapon for him to use as his revolutionary stance was the tools provided for him by Islam as it was taught to him through Elijah Muhammad. So let's go on another person who happens to also be a student of Elijah Muhammad. Let's go to another person here. I didn't mean to unshare that, so let me get this back here. So let's go to another one here. And yeah, let's go to this brother right here. Khalid Muhammad, often regarded as one of the most radical voices in the history of civil rights. Khalid's approach was marked by a no-hold-barred critique of systemic racism and a call to action that was both militant and unapologetically fierce. What's interesting to me is that whenever you have a situation, right, that where you don't bite your tongue, where you speak your mind as you as your heart presses you to do, and the oppressor for some reason is always the first to be offended by it. They always have something to say, while at the same time, when they want to drive in their agenda, they come often with the same fiery form of communication. Think about, for example, when the push was to go to fight in Iraq. You understand? Nobody was biting their tongue for that, even though even the push to make you convinced that there was some types of weapons of mass destruction there, only to find out later that there weren't any weapons of mass destruction. The whole thing is that there was that strong voice, the strong speech, that strong expression of determination of we've got to handle this enemy, we've got to do this, you're either with us or against us, on and on and on. But the minute the black man stands up and has had enough of the oppression, and has had enough of systemic racism, the minute he starts to speak about this, suddenly he's branded as, an enemy, or as it said, radical. Suddenly he's considered radical. Okay, so this one is a interview that Phil Donahue had. He was a talk show host, Phil Donahue, back in here, as you see, 1994, and Khalid Muhammad was his guest. Let's check it out.
Thank you. How are you? This is Khalid Muhammad, former national representative of Mr. Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam. Mr. Muhammad is the man who made so many of the front pages of America's newspapers with a speech at Kane College, which so many people called anti-Semitic and a lot of things. At the very least, racist. You remember the comment? He picked up the Pope's dress, and let's see what's under that dress. Here's what you said about Colin Ferguson, the man who shot a Jamaican black male who shot 6 people on the Long Island train. Mr. Muhammad speaks.
Where they set black inmates up in these jails and penitentiaries, and in particular there in Nassau County, and pulled all the black officers out and the black inmates so they could jump on Brother Colin Ferguson. because they were mad with him for catching the Long Island train and killing all them white folks. I love Colin Ferguson. I have no official position, so I can say I love him.
You love a man who randomly killed 6 people on a commuter train?
I love Colin Ferguson just as much as the masses of white Americans love General Schwarzkopf, General Westmoreland, General Patton, General MacArthur, and Eisenhower. America awards her killers, and they get ribbons and stripes and bars. I'm sensitive to the pain and suffering of the loss of life on that train, but I'm one of the rebellious slaves. And so when black people stand up out of pain and suffering and frustration, I understand after 500 years.
You also, you talk about the response of some African Americans to, for example, the book which attempts to prove that Jews are involved in the slave trade. I'd be happy to let them see that. You talk about when white folks can't defeat you, you said in your speech at Kane, they'll always find some Negro, some boot-licking, butt-licking, buck-dancing, bamboozle, half-baked, half-fried, sissified, punkified, pasteurized, homogenized nigger that they can trot out in front of you. I would ask you, Mr. Muhammad, is Jesse Jackson a boot-licking, homogenized nigger?
To the best of his ability, I believe he tries every day to do that.
Here you are mocking Jesse Jackson at a speech. I believe this is Howard University. Roll the tape.
Oh, boot-licking, buck-dancing, scratching, shuffling, messy Jesse Jackson. You keep. I am a somebody. I am a somebody. Keep hope alive. I am a somebody. I don't rightly know who the hell I am, but I am somebody.
Yeah. Are you an entertainer or are you a committed person to black people?
I'm so glad you asked that question. I believe that the liberation and salvation of the black nation must be brought about by black people gaining a thorough knowledge of self after our 500 to 6,000 year Holocaust, where we have lost over 600 million. And so I believe that that education process must be a process of 2 steps, inspiration and information. So I seriously give information, but black people are a people of rhythm and spirit. So I also give inspiration.
From your speech at Kane College in 1960, Chief Luthuli, the head of the ANC, received a Nobel Peace Prize, you reported to your audience, reminded them, for nonviolent struggle. Yes. Just like Mandela just received it with F.W. de Klerk. How could you stand with your oppressor and your enemy and receive the Nobel Prize for nonviolent struggle? You have, you do not support then Nelson Mandela's strategy in the struggle to free black people in South Africa?
Let us first of all be very clear here, Phil. Nelson Mandela is my brother.
So is
he
Jesse
is a member
Jackson.
of the family, and so is Jesse, and Jesse is a very brilliant man. We just want him to return home and stop being used by the enemy and the oppressor against his people. Now back to Brother Nelson Mandela. And certainly we can never mention Nelson without mentioning Winnie Mandela. But Nelson Mandela's attempt at a multiracial government in South Africa after the murder of men, women, children, and babies, and the rape of South Africa, a criminal settler colony that has been established like Israel there in that part of the world. I cannot go along with one man, one vote. Let me say why. If someone broke into your home, Mr. Donahue, and actually bomb rushed your home, and Black Boot stomped your door down, and came in and robbed and raped everyone in the household, and was able to take the wealth of your home and parlay it into an empire. This is an invader. This is an intruder. This is a murderer. This is a burglar. This is a criminal. So you have no responsibility to share your home with them after they broke in and committed the crimes that they did.
You said about South Africa, we give him, that is to say, white people, 24 hours to get out of town by sundown. That's all. If he won't get out of town by sundown, we'll kill every white that ain't right that's in sight in South Africa. We kill the women, we kill the children, we kill the babies, we kill the blind, we kill the cripple, we kill them all. We kill the faggot, we kill the lesbian, we kill them all. You say, why kill the babies in South Africa? Because they're going to grow up and oppress our babies, so we kill the babies. Are you seriously presenting yourself as a man interested in the future of your people with this kind of rhetoric?
I'm just as interested in the freedom of my people as I am in the self-determination or the Kujichagulia, self-development, them being self-defining, self-respecting, and self-defending. If the white man has killed millions of our people, and you cannot deny the undeniable and indisputable and irrefutable truth, fact, proof, and history of their bloodshed there in South Africa, I said it would be merciful if they would leave. I don't agree with a government, a sham government. No man walks out of prison after 27 years and becomes the president unless there's a script and a plan behind the scenes to remove the economic sanctions from whites in South Africa, but no real plan for redistribution of the wealth. The Oppenheimers, the De Beers, and others there sucking the blood of our people. So I said, be merciful. Give them a period of time. Truman gave the Japanese a period of time, but when they didn't comply, he dropped the bomb on men, women, children, and babies.
Yes, indeed, family. That was the fiery voice of Brother Khalid Muhammad. And it's interesting how he was able to defend even some what would appear to the naked ear as strong accusations or strong challenges, that he was able to tackle those like a pro. You understand? And hold his position, hold his points solidly. And he wasn't ashamed of any position that was presented to him. He was able to break down the what, how, when, where, and whys each time. You understand? So that was Khalid Muhammad. Again, a no holds barred personality. You understand? He didn't pull any punches. The next one is someone that I learned about a little later. Let me go here right now. Let's do this. The next one is someone I learned about a little later. And this is taking us back to the motherland, back to Africa, in a country that at the time was called Upper Volta, right? And through this particular Thomas Sankara, it gained a new name, Burkina Faso. And Burkina Faso is said to mean land of the upright people. Land of the upright people. So Thomas Sankara, dubbed the African Che Guevara, Sankara transformed Burkina Faso with policies that were revolutionary, focusing on anti-imperialism, agrarian self-sufficiency, and gender equality, illustrating a progressive vision for post-colonial Africa. And by the way, the comment that I see in the chat here, I will handle that as soon as I can in its proper time. So don't think that you can post a comment and it not be responded to appropriately. So Thomas Sankara, through all of these moves that he had achieved, all these achievements, still was not able to duck the wicked aim, if you would, of his adversary. More so, he was not able to avoid this happening from within his own ranks. In other words, the enemy was able to penetrate his ranks and use his closest comrade against him. You understand? So you can say that the enemy was able to find within the ranks of Thomas Sankara a Judas, willing and able to betray him for the right price. This is I would say that one of the most deadliest hindrances that any true Black revolutionary has, and is at risk of facing. That their closest ally or closest friend or closest comrade be the one to betray them. It's interesting that I'm saying this because the opposite ended up showing itself true, or ended up showing itself true in the case of another revolutionary that we're going to talk about in the proper order by the name of Ibrahim Traore, who also had a right-hand man who was given an offer. Fortunately for both Traore and his right-hand man, it was an offer that was refused. So now, the next on the list, and now I'm going to respond to this commentation. So let's go ahead and put the commentation on the screen here so you can know what it is that I'm talking about. And I'll read it off to you as well. So according to Louis Raymond, GMJ is an agent of the state, and the majority of these leaders are agents. The real leaders have been assassinated, and the fakes support the status quo. So that's a perspective that Louis Raymond is presenting to us. I'm curious to know how he gets his data and information. And, because to have that quality of knowledge, you need to be well within the ranks or well within the know. You understand? And if you're not well within the know, then I question your authenticity of words. I question that what you say can be believed if you can speak without having clear or without having the knowledge that satisfies facts. You understand? Having factual evidence to back up your claims. I'm going to talk about this person that he mentions by abbreviation GMJ, known as Grandmaster Jay, and also known as John Fitzgerald Johnson. This is an activist that I personally had the honor of meeting face to face, and such a meeting that I will say I have no regrets for. I was very honored by it. I was very moved. You understand? And if anything, whatever ideas I had prior to that were only enhanced as a result of meeting the person in person. Now, let me share something about that, because you know that in the world you have a person that you show to the public. Then you have the person that you are when the cameras are not on, right? And, I'm the type of person that critiques something like that. You understand? If I see one personality in one place and another personality in another place, I'm like, while at the same time I understand that, for example, the way you are with mother may not be the same way you are with your homeboy. You understand? So that I get. And so what I was impressed about Grandmaster Jay, amongst the many things that I was impressed about, was his remaining steadfast on his positions. In other words, he didn't pivot or shift his feet on his positions. And there were certain things that he was able to recognize in people, including who he could confide in. You understand? Who he could confide in. I'm your brother Questman, right? And many of you may or may not know me. But one of the things that I had an appreciation for is neither did Grandmaster Jay at the time. But what he did know of me was of a small measure, um, and it was enough to where he was confident that he could trust me with what he had to say. You understand? And so while we were at a gathering or an event, he did pull us to the side to another area to be able to talk more privately. One, because I know that he's aware that I communicate like I'm doing with you right now, and he wanted to be able to say some things that would remain solid, that will remain um, untainted. You understand that? Also, he wanted to be able to say some things to trusting ears. So when he did that, that was something that I felt um, was genuine. You understand? Because in a day and age where people, especially media personalities, would take things and twist the narrative or twist things to their advantage, twist your words, like you saw with what happened with the interview with Khalid Muhammad, twist twist the narration to try to paint you a certain way. You understand? The brother was willing to share some insights or share some experiences that he had been going through and some understandings and knowledge that he had been going through with us. You understand? On the basis that um, we would be authentic with it. You understand? And the things that weren't to be shared would not be shared. And to this day, they haven't been shared, at least from your brother Questman. You understand? Because one of the things I pride myself with is keeping it real and remaining authentic with myself. If I can't with anyone else, at the end of the day, I'm going to be real with myself. So I saw that in brother Grandmaster Jay. I saw, a person that knew that in certain situations he had to express himself more audibly to drive in the point, to drive in his message, to drive in his way or his plans or ideas. And at other points, he would sit or communicate in a more humbled way, especially when he wanted to drive in detailed aspects of his beliefs and opinions. You understand? He knew how to deliver very well. Very impressed by his method. And the thing that was I would say also impressive to me is that he didn't just talk, but he acted. He demonstrated. And I think something that many of you miss when those of you who have something negative to say, is that this was a brother who explicitly made it clear that his actions were intended to be within the parameters of the law. There was at no point where he um, would express himself in a way or encourage others to express himself in a way that would be violent or volatile to the law or against the law. And I think some people forget about that, because if they don't have the right perspective of Grandmaster Jay, if they don't have a right idea about him, and they're assuming that he's going to do something that he himself has not declared, then they're going to paint him with an erroneous brush. And so when he doesn't pull through with their twisted ideas about him, then he must be this, or he must be that, or he must be an agent. And it makes me think of scenarios that we learn about in history that when, in fact, it's a messianic scenario where Judas, one of the reasons why Judas was uh, uh, so willing to betray Jesus, Yeshua, Isa, was because he wasn't impressed with what Isa was doing. He, in his mind, he thought Isa was going to come and basically storm the empire and take it over and bring in a new kingdom, just like that. With one, one sweeping movement. You understand? He didn't understand the strategic methodology of the Messiah. You understand? He didn't understand how the Messiah moved, and so because Judas was not impressed, it wasn't difficult for him to take the bribery, take the offer, and go and betray um, the Messiah. So here we are, where you've got uh, individuals who weren't impressed because the brother didn't match their uh, ideas of how quote unquote a revolution should uh, be implemented. Mind you, that many of these individuals have never been in the military. They've never even owned a weapon. They've never been as far as their laptop or desktop in their gaming room or whatnot. And yet they have more to say about how a revolutionary should move than the revolutionaries themselves. So I'm often, questioning when I see comments like this, because I'm like, how does this person get their information to make such a blanket, such a blind claim as what this person, such as Lewis Raymond, had to say in the commentary? How is that possible? What kind of knowledge are you privy to know, you understand, how this person moves? You understand? How this person moves. Do you know what he eats for breakfast too? That's something I would like you to tell us, since you know so much about whether a person's an agent or not. See, the thing that I could say in response to something that you're saying here regarding, the real leaders are assassinated and the fake ones are supported. Well, the thing is both real, both the leaders that you're talking about and the so-called fake ones get similar treatment. Not only that, but there's been many cases throughout history where a real leader will be allowed to continue on about their way. You understand? With the idea that at some point the powers that be can perhaps bribe them or manipulate their cause. You understand? To their own aim. If you didn't hear what Khalid Muhammad was trying to point out regarding Nelson Mandela, Nelson Mandela was genuinely a good man in and of himself, but the cause that he had ended up being associated with, you understand, was not a cause that was in favor of the African community at large. It was a cause that 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 appealed to the white invaders of South Africa. You understand? So while Nelson Mandela was uh, you know, perhaps a well-meaning person, the power structure manipulated and used his cause against actually his actual cause. They used it and to their advantage. Does this make Nelson Mandela an agent? Khalid Muhammad, might have some ideas about that. And I would say that Khalid Muhammad would be more in the know of what qualifies that than this Lewis Raymond would be, because most often these people that pop up with these commentaries, they are simply being keyboard happy and nothing more. They feel like they've got a few punchlines they could put out there, and then they skip away and you never hear from them again. But I'm speaking from a person who has actually met Brother Grandmaster Jay. And long before I met the brother, I had been observing, attentively. And I even admitted then that when I was observing critically. as a skeptic, not as someone willing to jump on any bandwagon, but as a skeptic. So that means I was looking at an angle of who is this person? What's he really about? What's going on here? You understand? What's really happening? And I would, follow up with, anything, any reports that preceded his present day at that time activism, because I had questions. So as I paid it, as I my pardon, some of the systems just went off here. So as time went on, I was allowed to become more acquainted with uh, his method. Many of you that know about Grandmaster Jay will know some of his methods of uh, communicating his values. He would set up his presentations such as facts over feelings, morning mentals. These were some of his live presentations, and if you were to have an ear for any of this, you would know that it was more than just him just reading something, just to have an intellectual air about himself. But these were actually principles that he believed in, that he stood on. These were things that he lived by in his own heart, you could say. You understand? So here, what I saw was a man that had a vision, has a vision, and you know was moving in a way that he believed was within the parameters of the legal system, nothing breaking any laws, but actual rights that are supposed to be, uh, for every citizen in the United States of America, irrespective of your race, irrespective of your religion, irrespective of any of that, right? And so this is how the brother was moving in the face of the injustice that was going on in the black community, the police brutality. In particular, we can point out the George Floyd, we can point out the Breonna Taylor. You understand? So, and I often ask people, and I would ask someone like this, Louis Raymond, what would you have done when there's police brutality, when there's these acts of systemic racism? What wise tactic would you have offered instead of, if this brother was offering a way that was not proper, what was the proper approach? And often I hear nothing but silence. Or if they do respond, it would be something that's not realistic, that's not possible. You understand? And on they go. You never hear from them again. So let me share this. Let's share a clip with you here. This one is, let's see here. Do I have it ready? Oh, okay. Let's use this one right here. I'm going to share this one right here with you. So let me pause it right there. And there's a one of the quotes that I remember the brother would say is power respects power, right? Power respects power, and I want to hold on to that quote because for me that's one of the another characteristic of a revolutionary, a black revolutionary, is that the power structures, even of the adversary, they recognize the uh, the potential of power in a true revolutionary. They recognize it, they see it. And oftentimes, they'll do whatever it takes to try to stunt its growth, to hinder its path in some form or fashion. And with that in mind, we find that this has been what happened with this brother that we're speaking about now, Grandmaster Jay. And I'm saying this because it's interesting to me when I hear the people who have this agent claim against this brother. And, the last I checked, agents, if they were doing anything, they're going to have a comfortable life because they're being paid for by the state. But in this case, you have a person who's actually incarcerated right now, who's in prison and has been serving prison for some time now, and is looking at a completion of 7 years. You understand? And that's not something that anybody would want to willingly sign up to. And what I'm saying, prison, that he's in an actual prison around actual prisoners, fellow prisoners, a federal prison system. You understand? Let me see if I can share with you. I think I put it in this thing here. Is it on here? There we are. Let's go to this one right here real quick. In other words, don't do something. If you're being oppressed, don't think to do anything about it. And they're even admitting to you right there that they were. First of all, those of us that know that the charges that were given against this brother, that were um, put upon his brother, were bogus charges. They weren't anything that really bore any weight. There's some of us that were actually in the hearings, hearing the proceedings and whatnot go on, and we know well that this was a sham among shams of a court case. You understand? Many things that were not allowed to be, communicated. That had they been communicated on record, things could have taken a whole different direction. But they wanted to make an example. It had nothing to do with the charges. This was an opportunity that the power structure could use to make an example of any other would-be revolutionary. If you think to do anything, if you think you can stand up against us and boast of your rights and try to protect yourself and defend yourself, this is what we'll do to you. We're going to do it to him. And one of the things, when you think about agents and things like that, one of the things that you should consider is what is the point in this situation here. The very thing making you think this brother is an agent tells me that their tactic worked. You understand? To turn you against your own people who are rising up amongst you. What better way to defeat that than to paint them with the brush of being an agent? To to instill in you so much doubt that you won't even believe what's right in front of your face when it's very clear. You understand? Think about how much programming we've received from television shows, from movies, all these programmings that have us with this idea that this power structure is so sophisticated, so interwoven in the fabric of your mind that you can't think for yourself, that all they have to do is put this piece there and put this piece there, and you will bend to their whims. You understand? If you haven't been paying attention, even in today's time, you realize that a lot of this is exposing that they're not as strategic as they are, revealing themselves to be. A lot of things are really showing that there are things unraveling out of their hands. I'm talking about the power structure, the empire, unraveling out of their hands as we speak, that are contrary to what they had hoped to achieve. Take, for example, the people of Yemen who launched missiles that damaged and touched one of the mighty ships of the sea that they boast of, one of the mighty aircraft carriers. Yemen hit that aircraft carrier directly, letting you know that we see you and we can touch you. So that right there should show you that as mighty as empire that this wants to be, it can be touched. It is not invincible and is not almighty. So people who are like this Louis Raymond, who believe that the power structure is so mighty, so clever, so sophisticated that it's impossible to resist or to find a crack in its armor. These are the people that will willingly bend over and take whatever comes to them from the enemy. You understand? And then tell you, oh, well, there's nothing we could do about it. And if you speak out about it, oh, you must be an agent. These are the Louis Raymonds of the day. These are I'm actually glad this person made this comment, because all it did was give me the fuel to expose this kind of behavior. I didn't ask for this guy to come on here and give this comment, but it gave me the opportunity, because he did so, to expose this character and expose it right on time, because that's the very thing that egged me earlier when our brother is sitting behind bars. You understand? Can hardly get a letter properly because there's so many rules and stipulations on the letters, on the support and whatnot. And by the way, I would encourage all of those, if you are those who are supportive of the brother, to go ahead and shoot the brother a letter. Make sure you get the proper information. The brother has a GoFundMe, the Grandmaster Jay Legal Defense Fund, I believe it's still called. Be sure to check that out. You understand? And get the proper connections. I'll try to put something in the description here later, so that way you can have at least something for me, what I know of as far as a way to communicate, because that type of scenario is nothing that anybody wants to experience on any level. So I think that one of the craftiest tricks that a person could do is make you believe that they're able to do something that they're not. Or even if they were able to do it to some extent to make you believe that they're stronger, mightier than they actually are. I'm not saying it's the West is not a mighty country or mighty, America, United States are not mighty. But I'm saying they're not almighty. You understand me? I'm saying they're not almighty. And when you're not almighty, you have a weakness. Things can happen under your nose that you don't see happening. You don't see everything. You don't know everything. You can't do everything. You understand? So if anybody was duped or whatnot, it'd be ones like this Lewis Raymond who was duped when they had when people stand up and rise up from out of the community and you don't even recognize it. Yes, we understand that you have these bogus ones, like Khalid Muhammad pointed out when it came to Jesse Jackson. You have these ones that come out, like Al Sharpton and whatnot, that end up being exposed as agents. Even Al Sharpton admitted himself that he was an agent, so that's not even a mystery. You understand? So you have scenarios like this, but you have it so much in this way that now you don't even know how to make a distinction between an authentic revolutionary from an agent. You understand? Whether the revolutionary's life is taken or not, you don't know how to make a distinction between what's what. And as a result, we end up finding ourselves in a situation like this that I'm describing here, to where people that we should have been supporting, they don't get our support. You understand? They don't. If this brother had been any kind of an agent, then that would only mean that the agenda that the power structure had would have been successful. But you don't see that. In fact, on the later days of this court hearing, the people that were supportive of our brother Grandmaster Jay was a smaller population of people, a smaller group of people than the people that you saw marching or that you saw on all of these YouTube channels and whatnot that had something to say. So the loyal, the authentic, the real, you understand, the real people, you understand that some people were not able to physically present themselves. But all through this, the real people remain to this day. Even to this day, you will find some YouTube channels where brothers and sisters are still showing their support to Brother Grandmaster Jay's cause when nobody else is doing anything. And I want to shout out to ones like Sister K Money as an example, Sister Eleanor as an example. Shout out and salute to all those who've been remaining steadfast through it all, through the face of it all, when there's nobody else doing anything. You understand? That's not the treatment that an agent would get, is it? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. So let's go on to the next one that I have on this part right here. Again, this is under intellectual approach and activism. We got things to talk about, dear family, so be patient. Be patient. Ibrahim Traore. You understand? Ibrahim Traore. Now, you notice that several other names that I mentioned, Malcolm X, Khalid Muhammad, Thomas Sankara, these activists, these revolutionaries, unfortunately, their lives were cut short. They were unalived by the power structure, albeit through representations that often looked like you or me, our likenesses. You understand? Because that's how they move. When they want to get the dirty work done, they'll get someone that looks like you or me to do it. They won't show themselves to do it directly. They'll get someone that has our color to do that job. So here we are talking about Ibrahim Traore, who, interestingly enough, also has an adversary trying to take him down on the behest of the enemy, who looks just like one of us, but does the bidding of his imperial masters. You understand? I'm talking about none other than General Langley. So Ibrahim Traore represents a contemporary figure in African leadership. His military background and current actions express a direct challenge to neo-colonial influences, striving for national and regional self-determination. let's check out Ibrahim Traore. I've got a clip on here about him. I believe it's up here. Let's check him out because this is in the present day time. This is a movement, an activist, a cause taking place in real time, right in our life right now. It's still ongoing. So you guys could hear me there. I said one of the things that stands out to me as I was watching that clip is how impactful and the recognition that's given to not just Ibrahim Traore himself, but the support. You understand the global support, the global impact. Now the thing is, um, people people have to give humanity more credit than what's being given. Um, yeah, there are people who aren't that intelligent in the world, but what about the people who have been paying attention? What about the people who um, do have intelligence and who have recognized in this situation a cause worthy of supporting? You understand? I'm saying this to the naysayers who think that everything is some type of a gimmick or whatnot. This is a person whose rise, if you will, has affected the hearts globally. People, every person that ends up knowing, or having something to, some awareness about this, ends up having similar feelings. And like even the announcer said here, yeah, there are critiques. You understand, but as a whole, you understand, what you do see is a very strong movement that is going in one direction, forward, upward, and that's that. Now, as of late, as I mentioned to you, he has his adversaries. He has his adversaries, for example, in the form of a General Langley, a military man of the United States, who have already falsely accused him of hoarding gold and reserves or whatnot. And Ibrahim Traore was able to handle that professionally by exposing the fact that prior to his takeover, there was no gold reserves. You understand? And I think that because of the West's eagerness to try to depose Ibrahim Traore, they're literally, you know, trying anything they can to make it happen. The most recent thing was to their effort to cause division within the country of Burkina Faso by accusing Traore of unaliving 100 plus Fulani people. You understand? But what they don't tell you is that the people that are under discussion were actually people who are associated with the terrorist attacks that are coming at the south western region of Burkina Faso, something that was already known prior to their making these claims. Now, but by them calling out or by them making the distinction of the tribe, is clear that their intention is to um, spread division. You understand? Spread division amongst the populace there who might happen to be Fulani. So we know that this is a tactic that this enemy has done before. And I think what's happening today is that many people are so aware of the games or the gimmicks that the West will try to do to get their way, that they're simply closing the door to any of that, to believing any of that. You understand? And have said, as one person will put it, you want to deal with them, ignore whatever they've got coming your way. Ignore them. One way you want to handle a liar is you don't listen to nothing the liar has to say. You don't take the chance that oh, maybe they might be telling the truth, but let's just close that door altogether and we don't have to worry about whether the liar is telling the truth or telling a lie. We don't hear any of it at all. We become mute to the whole thing. And I think in some grades that's what's happening with people now. They recognized the trickery so much that you know there's not too much that they're willing to take as valid from the West anymore. So I say salute to Ibrahim Traore for not giving up, even in the face of 20 unaliving attempts on his life, even in the face of needing, or requiring an escort to his diplomatic uh, duties in other countries, because everyone is well aware that the adversary is trying hard to get rid of Ibrahim Traore. I think people should pay attention. I think people should pay attention, not just with their brain, not just with their scholastic opinions or whatnot, but also with their heart. And I think, sometimes we become so hearted, so rock hearted that we've lost hope, we've lost faith, we've lost the ability to sense um, awakening, to sense spiritual developments. You understand? Even, as one person was talking about miracles, we don't even know how to recognize a miracle anymore. I'm not talking in some kind of spooky sense. I'm talking about what the actual words mean when things happen that are beyond the scope of human effects. You understand? 20 unaliving attempts. You explain to me what that is. 20 unaliving attempts. You tell me what that means. So let's go on to the next person. Again, this is concerning the intellectual approach in activism. Next person on this, Marcus Garvey, advocated for the return to the Africa movement, and established the Universal Negro Improvement Association. Garvey's intellectual approach focused on Black economics, independence, and cultural pride, inspiring mass movements and future generations globally. One of the things that has impressed me through all of the names just mentioned so far is all of these people were doers. They were active. They were the true sense of what it means to be an active. When you saw like Grandmaster Jay speaking about putting boots on the ground, what did he do? He went and put boots on the ground. Many of the people, they didn't know each other from anywhere, but he made it happen. He didn't just sit around talking about it, hoping or dreaming that one day it would happen. Let's get out here. Let's do it. Meet me at such and such location. Marcus Garvey, he didn't just dream about, the Negro enterprise aspirations. No, he went and invested. He took the money that they gathered and invested in operations, real time. They owned They owned a fleet. They owned a import export fleet. Purchased it. You understand? Amongst many other things, with the objective of establishing international trade. You understand? That would have really developed both Africans abroad and Africans of America. This was Marcus Garvey. These people, when you look at each person, Ibrahim Traore, once he established himself in power, he didn't waste any time. He immediately went attacking the roads, developing the roads, hospitals, restoring the hospitals, the education system. You understand? Revamping pretty much everything that was ailing and weakening, and stopped the bleeding of minerals from the country, from being robbed and stolen and taken out of the country at the cost of pennies in return. So immediately he didn't waste time doing things for the benefit of his people. What kind of corrupt leaders do you know would be doing something like that and continually doing something like that, even at the risk of their own life? You understand? At any point in time, I'm going back to the Grandmaster Jay situation. At any point in time, he could have been unalived. Even at these people who were expressing the bogus charges, they could have handled that at any time. You understand? But the thing is when you're a person of courage, when you're a person of resolve, determined to move in accordance with your cause, you're not bothered by these things. If anything, you become tone deaf to them, or at the very least aware of them, but not concerned, not bothered. We're talking about people of intellect. If you ever heard these people speak, listen to what Ibrahim Traore has to say. Listen to some of the messages of Marcus Garvey. Listen to Khalid Muhammad again. Listen to Grandmaster Jay again, and you'll notice that what they all have in common is at the top is the title that I gave this: intellectual approach and activism. These are not idiots. These are intelligent men. You understand? That are the activists leading and driving and inspiring, and not afraid to manifest their intelligence, even at the risk of their own lives. There's nothing fun about being locked away in the prison. There's nothing fun about your life being taken away. There's nothing fun about people attempting to take your life. You understand? There's no amount of money you will want to get paid to put your life on the plate to be taken on a sacrifice block to be taken. Because then what good would the wealth do if that was the case for some of these? So Ibrahim Traore, you understand, putting everything on the line to remain on course for his cause. He sees the support. He sees the effects that's happening all around him, but he also sees the threats. And many of you have never been in positions of leadership, have no idea of how to move as a leader of an entire country, let alone your own household, some of you. And yet you have something to say about these revolutionary personalities, these revolutionary men. You wouldn't know the first action to do if you were put into any of these men's boots, any of these black men's boots. You wouldn't know the first move to do, let alone the first thing to say. Most of you that have something to say in any way are hypocrites, because you would say these things without any knowledge, without any facts, from behind your computer desk. You would say all these things with no validity, only just to try to, hinder the cause, to break it down. If anything, you are the agents. You are the instruments, the very instruments that the power structure loves to see continuing to do that. They love they love when these types show up. They love the ones that are willing to do the bidding of the empirical masters, the empirical colonial masters. They love General Langley. You understand? They love someone who has such high aspirations to achieve the highest ranks he can possibly get, to get as much honor and glory from the master as he can possibly get. So he's willing to do whatever he can to make master smile, even at the cost of his own blood. Even at the cost of his own blood, he would rather do master's bidding at the expense. Imagine if the alternative. Imagine if the task was the annihilation of his own people. These are the kind of people that would willingly do their master's bidding, cut themselves off and say, "Oh, I'm not one of them." But what it is blindness. It's not just greed and hypocrisy, it's blindness, because what you're not seeing is that just as well as they want you to do this to your own, they will do the same to you later, because they don't like you either. They don't like any of you henchmen any more than they like the people they're sending you out against. Right now, you're just a tool in their toolbox, an instrument at their disposal for them to achieve their aim. So you can be proud about your badges and ribbons and your ranks, but understand they hate you just the same. You're just as much of an enemy to them as the people they're sending you out to be against. Unique attributes is the next title I have. Malcolm X's philosophical transformation and internationalistic perspectives highlighted the interconnected nature of struggles against oppression worldwide. This is what many people say was the cause behind what led to his being unalive, was that he started to network and connect internationally. He started to be internationally effective. His moves, his words were not just empty words. They were starting to manifest. And when he started to manifest, that's the threat that the adversary doesn't want. Because they know, just as they have it in their own policy, that the rise of any kind of messianic personality is a threat to their agenda. You understand? Why? Because one, it reveals just how weak they are in this aspect. without, without graping the resources of the motherland. They cannot empower themselves. When you hinder their access to those resources, you hinder access for them for their success. You cut off the valuable pipelines that keep the empire alive. So yes, these messianic characters, these messianic figures, are definitely threats, exposing, you understand, the weakness of the adversary, letting it all be known to any would-be activist who might genuinely develop the inspiration of how to handle this enemy. Khalid Muhammad's straightforward confrontational style pushed the boundaries of rhetoric within civil rights, focusing on Black sovereignty. One of the things I mentioned, like I said, all these activists are lawful people. Yes, their words are flamboyant, fiery, but they're lawful people. You understand? They're following a more, and I'm not talking about just necessarily the law of the land, the law of like the United States uh, legal system. I'm talking about moral law. You understand? They're morally grounded with the principles. So much so that they don't budge. That's why even when the Donahue was questioning Khalid, he was able to combat those questions with ease because his position, his resolve remains steadfast, like a solid rock that you can't move. Thomas Sankara. So I said, yeah. Khalid Muhammad's straightforward confrontational style pushed the boundaries of rhetoric within civil rights, focusing on Black sovereignty. Thomas Sankara is renowned for actualizing revolutionary ideas within governmental structures, demonstrating that systemic change is achievable. See, ones like this, Louis Raymond believes that the tyrannical regime of the empirical structure of the West, of the United States, is invincible. That there's nothing you could do, that it's impossible for anybody to even think of rising up in the face of it all. These ones believe that they are that they are inevitably subjected to the power structure. That there's no way out. Like I said, this is the consequence of much of the programming of our Western minds, with a lot of the material that we've allowed to penetrate our mind, the movies, the films. None of these things are, understand, these films, nobody invests millions of dollars to produce these films just for you to be entertained, and then that's it, that's that. You put millions of dollars, you invest millions of dollars in high quality film because you want to send a message. You want to establish, you want to make sure the programming gets in. You want these people to think a certain way, you've got to program them a certain way so they think a certain way. So let's go ahead and put the investment of our money where it matters most, in the way this populace thinks. Have them turning against their own people when it's even in their better interest to support them. Think about that. They'll have you turning against your own. They'll have you so comfortable with the way you're living that you don't even want to abandon those comforts, even if those comforts were still keeping you suppressed, oppressed, chained, psychologically enslaved. You will still accept those comforts for greater comforts instead of greater comforts. Grandmaster Jay stands out for his tactical and paramilitary approach to civil rights, emphasizing defense training. Again, lawful behaviors these people are demonstrating. Where in these people's character, oh, you people who claim they're agents, where in these people's character is an unlawful action or behavior? This is the part that gets me the most, is when these people aren't breaking any laws. You understand? When you think about organizations like Al-Qaeda, that's propped up by the West, by the way, when you think about organizations like these terrorist groups They're actually breaking and violating the laws. Massacre, the genocide word. You understand? These people are actually violating rights of humanity right before your eyes. But what are these activists? What laws are these black revolutionary men? What laws are they actually breaking? Because they're not even, some of them aren't even breaking the laws of the land. Not even breaking the laws of the land. Understand what I'm saying? Ibrahim Traore, his power established through a populist coup. That means the whole country was headed this direction anyway. Somebody was going to have said, I had enough of the way things are going. It just so happened to be Ibrahim Traore who represented that voice. You understand? The populace was backing that up. That means the country itself wanted that change. How do you think any nation arrives anyway? How do you think any nation becomes a nation? They become a nation because whatever regime was before them decayed, corrupted, collapsed, and sometimes was conquered by an invading power structure. This is how it happens in this world. In this case, the people had enough of their wealth being shipped away and they get nothing in return. They had enough of, the world around them modernizing with paved streets, high quality hospitals and whatnot. And yet, while they live on a land full of wealth, they don't get to see any of it manifested in their own neighborhoods. So when a man rises up, immediately demonstrating real-time restoration, real-time revolution, you understand? This is for the people. We have to consider the reality here. Ibrahim Traore brings a fresh perspective as a leader from within the military, directly engaging in the modern geopolitical context of West Africa. He's the one that's still out there on the battlefield, so to speak, has not been unalived, has not been captured, still fighting the fight. Now, mind you, the others, even though, like brother Grandmaster Jay, incarcerated, but his passion remains. You understand? His desire for change remains. And if anything, you might find that is strengthening. And the last I heard, when it comes to the word of those who've been in communication, he remains motivated. If anything, this has been an opportunity for him to refine and gain clarity, for the cause that he's, standing up for. So Marcus Garvey's unique emphasis on Black economics, empowerment, and a return to Africa has left a lasting legacy on the economic strategies of Black liberation movements. I want to share with you real quickly some other activists that may not be the boots on the ground type, but they are a flaming beacon to the mind, and of the type of activists that I believe are equally, if not more so important, because for me, knowledge is superior to the sword. That doesn't mean that the sword has no place. You understand? It all has a place. But I think that when people are properly informed, they are properly motivated. That's why I have a respect when I see that the activist is not only rigorous in their position, physically, actively, but they also come with knowledge. You understand? These minds, each of the ones that I just mentioned here, they're not simply people blowing a lot of hot air, but they're actually brothers that know a thing or two. You understand? Very, very insightful, very, very pleasant to hear them communicate on top of their activism. You understand me? On top of their activism. And the thing is, it's very difficult to imitate words that come from the heart genuinely. So when you hear like the passion, or when you hear the strength in Ibrahim Traore's words or Khalid Muhammad's words, you know, they have their way of words and their way of talking, but you can tell that Khalid Muhammad means everything he's saying. You understand? This is what is real for him. This is what's real for him. The same when you would hear brother Grandmaster Jay in his uh, facts over feelings, breaking bread, and he would start talking and building on those sessions. You will feel that his heart, his passion is there, that he's right in his comfort zone. This is where he wants to be. That the message that he's containing, that he's presenting in those facts over feelings, he's right where he wants to be. I feel the same thing with Ibrahim Traore. I feel he recognizes what he has to deal with in his life. He understands the gravity of his cause. You understand? He also understands how he has the type of character that's expected of him, the duties that's expected of him. You understand? He understands these things, and when I watch, I see him taking on every task expected of him professionally, courageously, intelligently. You understand? And without any kind of hesitation. That's what I see when it comes to all these activists. Um, Brothers and sisters, my laptop is going to be tapping out soon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to point you to Soul Journey of Life. Check out the group called the Village Circle, and or you could look at the activity feed that's there, and you'll see I have the links there to some of these videos, even the videos that I've been showing you. They're all there, and I would like you to check out uh, Ivan Ben Sertima. Let me play this Runoko Rashidi real quick. I think I have time for that. Yes, indeed, brothers and sisters. That was the late Runoko Rashidi, one of my favorite historians of all time. He's for me, he's in the same class as the likes of Ivan Ben Sertima. I believe that understanding of our history is critical, especially in today's time. Understanding where we come from, who we are, you understand, even why we've been going through the things we've been going through, and how our solutions for that. I think it's very important that we pay attention to our story in the face of the lies and the deception and the twist of history that's given to us by the empirical forces as they manipulate and attempt to control our ways of history. Um, I'll say this about community solidarity and support. The Black community, while immensely supportive, um, has faced challenges such as fragmentation, internal infiltration, misinformation, and varying degrees of economic and political clout, which have occasionally hampered unified and sustained support. Increased global communication, consistent strategic planning, and cross-cultural alliances could strengthen further unity, further solidarity. But this means we have to be willing to accept the diversity that comes from amongst us intellectually, even religiously. You understand? And I think some of us we end up being too stubborn to yield some ground for that kind of diversity. So, in conclusion, the imperative of collective support. The narrative of these leaders underscores the essential lesson. The road to liberation is perennial and fraught with challenges. The Black community must recognize the sacrifices of these leaders and continue to support those who boldly stand against oppression. The struggle for self-determination, equitable treatment, and justice is relentless and demands not only remembrance and respect for these leaders, but also active participation and perseverance in their revolutionary paths. Wherever you are, when there's a cause speaking the voice of revolution, when there's people standing up for your interests, it only makes sense that you support in some way, in some fashion, and stop being, amongst those people who want to be hypocritical and cowards. They will tell you any excuse, anything in order to cop deuces, in order to be cowardly and avoid the reality that we're suffering every day of our life. They don't want to participate. They're satisfied. They're comfortable with the peanuts that they get in their life. They're comfortable with that. You understand? So they're always going to surface and show up speaking out against real activists. You understand? Real people who stand up. So while each leader that we've talked about has uniquely contributed to the cause of Black liberation, their collective impact teaches us that unity, intellectual engagement, and an unwavering resolve are indispensable in the fight against systemic injustice. These leaders not only fought for their contemporaries, but lit a path for future generations, emphasizing that the cause of liberation and the fight for self-determination are continuous battles that must be pursued with vigor and unyielding spirit. Malcolm X, Khalid Muhammad, and Marcus Garvey share a common thread in their unapologetic approach towards challenging oppressive systems. They possessed a fierce determination to uplift their people and dismantle the chains of oppression through intellectual discourse and fearless activism. Malcolm X's intellectual prowess, coupled with his unwavering commitment to Black liberation, earned him a place in history as a revolutionary icon. Khalid Muhammad's boldness in speaking truth to power resonated deeply within the community, inspiring many to rise against injustice. Marcus Garvey's Pan-African vision and call for self-reliance ignited a sense of pride and unity among Black individuals globally. On the other hand, Thomas Sankara, Grandmaster Jay, and Ibrahim Traore stand out for their unique approaches to activism and revolution. Sankara's revolutionary leadership in Burkina Faso focused on empowering the masses through education, healthcare, and self-sufficiency, making him a beacon of hope for many across Africa. Grandmaster Jay's formation of the Not Effing Around Coalition, the NFAC, in the face of racial tensions in the United States, showcases a bold stance against systemic racism and police brutality. Ibrahim Traore's defiance against Western interference and corruption in his homeland embodies a spirit of resistance and a commitment to sovereignty. What distinguishes these individuals as authentic activists and true revolutionaries is not just for their charismatic persona or fiery speeches, but their unwavering dedication to the cause of liberation. They embody the values of selflessness, courage, and resilience, putting the needs of their community above personal gain and comfort. Their motivation stems from a deep-rooted love for their people and a commitment to dismantle oppressive structures to create a better future for generations to come. The Black community could have shown better solidarity in support of these causes by standing together in unity, setting aside differences, and amplifying the voices of these leaders on a global scale. By mobilizing resources, raising awareness, and actively participating in grassroots movements, the community could have strengthened the impact of these revolutionary figures and garnered more support for their causes. Standing with those who stand up for us is paramount to the progress of liberation of our people. The fight for self-determination and freedom is ongoing and must never be abandoned. These courageous individuals have paved the way for future generations to continue the struggle for justice, equality, and empowerment. Let us honor their legacies by embodying their spirit of resilience, unity, and unwavering commitment to the cause of revolution. Dear brothers and sisters, I am Abdul Wadud, aka Question Man, and this was the live Soul Journey of Life, Conscious Social Media. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to support the platform at the link that you see scrolling at the bottom, and which will be in the description, as it will help more than you know, especially the new generation of revolutionaries. You understand me? With that said, I am going to conclude this live by saying to you all who viewed, I appreciate you taking the time out to listen to this presentation. I say to you, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Shalom. Peace and blessings be with you. And I pray that you have a gracious rest of your day, and that our hearts will come closer together with each step of the way towards this common cause.
The mind stays strong. Count of calls to record. Take two of these and feel it working instantly. Flows powerful enough to obliterate those who stand against me. Immensely, I benefit my seeds to grow into a greater image than I be. It's highly likely to be, so long as they understand the essence of the 1, 2, 3s and ABCs of the glory of our story. See the sun rise up in the morning. When I come, the sky begins storming. It's alarming. In fact, when the world was black, we were supreme in understanding. We gon' need that back. Solid like a rock, rock your body. Lolly dotty. I look and I see the clear image of our folly. Divided and conquered. The way many of us are so draped, the way it's awkward. Dumb, deaf, and blind. Why bother? Mind your manners. Gather together to agree. Elevate our standards. Looking at the burning embers. Buddy, please explain to me what we're seeing in the camera. Innocent bodies of plastic. It's tragic. The gun clicks loudly when I've had it. Up to here. We need a restoration act of black unification tactics. It's black. It's black. I'm black and I'm proud. It's black. It's black. I'm black and I'm proud. It's black. It's black. I'm black and I'm proud. It's black. It's black. I'm black. I bought a pack of matches, just enough to keep the light on. Illumination in the smart zone of the light dome. They say big things come in small packages. I say big things, he broken up the best piece and blasted with an armed assault, fully loaded. What's with the violent talk? I'm just joking, sort of. Break out the peace pipe, show some love. Notice how my lights keep zooming in and out of focus. Who gets the last laugh? Failed to duck the last jab. Get out my face. So what's really in the grab bag? A bag of Skittles and memories don't live like people do. And they know this. The reason they keep silencing, killing, and locking up the chosen. Open to delay the inevitable ass kicking. Still can't get the picture. There's always a price to pay. The alternation of the night and day, like Marvin Gaye would say. There's far too many of us dying. The Camino denying. So soon of Buddha, quit crying. I'm looking at the red, the black, the green colors flying. I'm looking at the thunder, the storm, the lightning, and the heavens unifying. It's black. It's black. I'm black and I'm proud. It's black. It's black. I'm black and I'm proud. It's black. It's black. I'm black and I'm proud. It's black. It's black. It's black. Soul journey of life. Soul journey. The light dome. Shout out to all those who would oppose Systemic racism, salute to the soldiers. In any form or fashion in which it manifests. Quest man, release the stress from your chest. What?